If you
I know about the
watched part
contract.
1,
I know
you
your
saw
secret.
Sejun walk away from the altar. Hyun left with her head up. But that's where most stories end. This is where the real story begins. Because women like Hyun do not accept loss, they strategize. And she was about to remind everyone in that room exactly what kind of woman she was. The car ride from the altar took 14 minutes. Hyun sat in the back seat with her wedding dress still on, still perfect, still arranged exactly as it had been when she walked down the aisle. Her makeup was flawless, her hair was immaculate. Everything about her was exactly where it should be, except for the small detail that her world had just fractured in front of 300 witnesses and she could do nothing about it. Not yet. Her father was already waiting when she arrived at the family estate, not in the sitting room, in his office. The distinction mattered. The sitting room was for conversations that could be managed. The office was for conversations that could not. She sat down across from him without removing the dress. "Explain," he said simply. "He has a child with a maid," she said. Her voice was level. She was not going to cry. Crying was for women who had lost control. Her father was quiet for a long moment, the kind of quiet that is not peaceful. That is the quiet of a man recalculating, understanding the scope of what has just happened to his family's position and deciding what to do about it. "How many people know the details?" he said. "Everyone at the wedding knows he has a child with her," Hyun said. "Not everyone knows about the contract, not yet, but Daeho has the document, and documents have a way of traveling. Then we need to control the narrative," her father said. He stood up, walked to the window. "You will issue a statement, a dignified statement. You will say that you discovered the pregnancy weeks ago, that you chose to step aside rather than subject an innocent child to a life in a world they did not choose, that you are devastated but supportive of his happiness. You will make yourself look noble." Hyun looked at him. "That is not what happened," she said. "It does not matter what happened," her father said, not turning from the window. "It matters what people believe happened. And if you tell them that you are the one who protected that child, then you become the victim in the story rather than the villain. You become the woman who sacrificed her own happiness for the greater good." Hyun understood. It was good strategy. It was also a burial. If she told that story, she became the woman Sejun left, not the woman who was wrong, but the woman who was left. And in their world, the distinction was everything. "And if I refuse?" she said. Her father turned from the window then, looked at his daughter, still in her wedding dress, still composed, still refusing to break. "Then we go to war," he said quietly. "And wars in our world do not look like what you see in films. They look like ruined businesses, disappeared associates, problems that multiply quietly and never stop multiplying. And the casualties are usually not the people you intend, they are the people around them. So I suggest you consider very carefully what you want your victory to cost." He walked past her, stopped at the door. "The statement will be ready by morning," he said. "You will deliver it looking exactly the way you look right now, perfect, dignified, broken in a way that makes people pity you." He left. Hyun sat alone in her father's office in her wedding dress, and for the first time something in her face shifted, something cracked, because she had understood something in that moment that she had not understood before. She had lost. Not just the wedding, not just Sejun. She had lost the right to be the villain of her own story. Her father had just taken that from her. Sejun's father was having a very different conversation. They met in the study of the family home, just the two of them, the way men in their world met when something irreversible had happened. "You have destroyed a 6-month arrangement," his father said, not angry,
Worse, disappointed. You have humiliated 2 families in front of 300 of the most important people in this city. You have given our enemies ammunition they will be using against us for years.
Sejun stood very still. The contract Ha-un used was fabricated, he said. She tried to force a termination of a pregnancy. When the woman refused, she had her dismissed and destroyed her livelihood, all on a single day. I am aware, his father said. Dae-ho informed me of the document's existence before you made your spectacle at the altar. I chose not to tell you how to handle it because I believed you would handle it correctly. Clearly, I was wrong. I handled it the only way I could handle it, Sejun said. You handled it the way your heart wanted you to handle it, not the way your head should have handled it. There are ways to dissolve an engagement, quiet ways, ways that preserve everyone's dignity and the family's position. Instead, you chose public humiliation. Sejun said nothing. The Choi family is demanding consequences, his father continued. They are threatening to dissolve every business arrangement we have with them, and they have considerable leverage. So I suggest you understand very clearly what you have just committed this family to, because the next move is mine, and I am not going to make it because I agree with your choice. I am going to make it because you are my son, and you have put us in a position where I have no other option. He paused. The woman, he said. Tell me about her. Sejun looked at his father. This was the moment where his father would decide whether this was a mistake or a choice, whether it was a scandal or a future. Her name is Amara, he said. She is intelligent, she is honest, she does not perform for power, and she is carrying my child. His father held his gaze for a long moment. Then something shifted in his expression. Not approval, not yet, but understanding. Bring her to me, he said. Not today, not tomorrow, when she is ready. And Sejun, he paused. Your heart has made this decision. Now your head has to keep her alive in the world you have brought her into. That is considerably harder than choosing her at an altar. Are you prepared for that? Sejun met his father's eyes. Yes, he said. We will see, his father said. Amara did not know any of this. She was still in her small room, still sitting on the edge of her bed, still waiting for him to come back in 40 minutes, which had now stretched to 2 hours, because he had to go home and change, and apparently also had a family conversation that was taking considerably longer than expected. She had made tea. She had cleaned the room. She had stood at the window and looked out at the city moving below her, and tried very hard not to let herself hope too much about what came next. Her phone buzzed. A single message from a number she did not recognize. Miss Osi, my name is Park Dae-ho. I work for Kang Se-jun. He is currently in a meeting with his father and will be delayed. He asked me to ensure you are taken care of in the interim. I am outside your building. There is a car. If you are willing, I have been instructed to take you somewhere safe. Amara read the message 3 times. Then she picked up her jacket and went downstairs. Dae-ho was exactly what she expected. Quiet, efficient. He drove without speaking until they had left her neighborhood and entered a quieter part of the city. Gates, walls, the kind of place where things were arranged. You kept the contract, he said, finally. Yes, she said. That was good instinct, he said. It saved you, and it saved him.
How does he view it? Amara said. With concern, Deho said. But concern is better than dismissal. His concern means he will protect you, because protecting you protects Sejun's choice. That is how this works in his world. They arrived at a modern building that rose silently against the night sky. Deho brought her to a private apartment on the 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a kitchen that had never been used, a bedroom that smelled like nothing, because nothing had ever lived here. This is safe, Deho said simply. You will stay here tonight. Tomorrow we will handle the rest. For now, you are protected. That is all that matters.
She stood in the center of the empty apartment and understood something very clearly. She had crossed a line. There was no going back to her small room now. There was no going back to day work and solitude and building things alone. Whatever came next, she was now inside his world, and his world did not let people leave quietly. Sejun arrived at the apartment at midnight. He had changed out of his wedding suit into dark clothes that made him look less like a man who had just destroyed his family's arrangement, and more like a man who had simply decided something and was now living with the consequences of it. He found her standing at the window, looking out at the city. "Hi," he said simply. She turned, looked at him, looked at the apartment, looked back at him. "Your father owns this," she said. Not a question. "He owns a lot of things," Sejun said. "As of tonight, you are one of the things he is protecting." "I don't want to be protected," she said. "I want to be chosen. There's a difference." "I know. I chose you at an altar in front of 300 people. That was the public part. This," he gestured to the apartment, to the city below, to everything that had just shifted. "This is me choosing you in private. This is me saying that whatever comes next, I am not going to let you face it alone. That is not protection. That is partnership." She held his gaze. "Your father wants to meet me," she said. "Yes," he said. "And if he decides I am not acceptable," she said, "then I stop being his son in any way that matters," Sejun said. It was said quietly, but it was final. "I have already made that choice. The only question now is whether he accepts it. But that is not your problem to solve. That is mine." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she crossed the space between them and kissed him, the kind of kiss that is not a question, that is an answer. That is a woman saying yes to something she had decided long before she allowed herself to know that she was deciding it. When they broke apart, he was smiling in that way he sometimes smiled, the controlled distance completely gone. "I brought you something," he said. He pulled a small envelope from his jacket. Inside was a contract, Haun's contract, her seal, her handwriting, all of it. Deho made a copy. "This is yours to do what you wish. Burn it, keep it. The original is secure, but you should have the power to decide what happens with it." She looked at the contract, the physical proof of Haun's deliberate cruelty, the thing she had carried in secret, the insurance policy of someone who knew that in her world, paper was the only thing that protected you. "I don't want this," she said. "I know," he said, "but you might need it." "If I might need it," she said carefully, "then Haun has not actually lost. She has just been delayed." Sejun was quiet for a moment. "No," he said, "she has lost. But losses in this world have a way of creating desperate people, and desperate people do things that require insurance." Amara folded the contract carefully and put it back in the envelope. She understood what he was saying. Haun would move. That was not a question. The only question was when. Haun's statement went out the following morning. masterpiece of reconstruction. She spoke of discovering Sejun's infidelity, of stepping aside to protect an innocent child. She called Amara brave, positioned herself as the woman who loved him enough to let him go. "I don't want you to change," he said. "I want you to understand that you have just made yourself a target." "I have always been a target," she said. "I was just a quiet one before. At least now people know they should be afraid of me, instead of pretending they are not afraid and calling it politeness." He laughed then. The real kind, the unguarded kind. "My father is going to be very interested to meet you," he said. "Let him be interested," she said. "I will be waiting." Ha-un did not wait. She moved within 48 hours, but not to attack, to disappear. A letter with her lawyer, a confession, everything documented, her signature. A note, "I take responsibility for my actions." Then she boarded a plane to Singapore and did not come back. Perfect execution. By confessing, by removing herself, she became a cautionary tale rather than a villain. Public sentiment shifted again. People began sympathizing. What a fall, what a price. It was genius. It was also cowardice. Everyone understood the difference. Sejun's father finally asked to meet Amara 2 weeks after the article came out. She arrived at the family estate at sunset. Sejun wanted to come with her. She refused. "This is between us," she said. "You do not get to soften it by being present." He walked into his office alone. He was standing at the same window where Ha-un had stood in her wedding dress. He turned when she entered. "Sit," he said. She sat. "You have caused considerable disruption," he said. "Ha-un caused the disruption. I simply documented it." He almost smiled. "You are not what my son deserves," he said. "You are considerably better, which makes this considerably harder, because better people are harder to protect, harder to control, harder to keep safe. And in my world, hard to protect means hard to keep alive." "Then perhaps," Amara said, "you should consider changing your world instead." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he walked back to his desk and pressed a button. A moment later, a stack of documents was brought in. He slid them across to her. "A house," he said, "in your name, not in Sejun's, not in mine, yours. An account, a security detail, and a piece of paper that says you are under the protection of this family. That means no one touches you, no one threatens you, no one erases you. You have power now. The question is whether you know how to use it." She looked at the documents, then at him. "Why?" she said. "Because a man who would choose a woman like you over everything he has built," he said, "is a man who will eventually choose something important over me. I would rather that something important be bound to this family by choice than fighting against it forever. So I am choosing you, not because I like you, because I respect you, and respect is harder than love." He stood. "The baby," he said, "when it is born, it will be part of this family. That means it will have obligations, responsibilities, a position to maintain. Are you prepared for that?" "I am prepared for my child to have choices I did not have. Beyond that, we will see." He nodded. "That is the right answer," he said. 6 months later, Amara stood in a hospital room and held her daughter. She had Sejun's eyes and Amara's stubborn chin. Perfect and small, and completely unaware she had already shifted the balance of power in a world that had been arranged the same way for 30 years. Sejun stood next to the bed, looking at his daughter the way men look at something they did not believe could exist until they saw it. "What are we calling her?" he said. "Maya. She gets to choose what it means." He reached out. Maya wrapped her tiny fingers around him. He went very still. "She is going to be remarkable," he said. "She is going to be free," Amara said. "That is better." In Singapore, Haun read the news of the baby's birth in a coffee shop. A girl, Amara and Seo Jun's daughter. The headline read, "Mafia Boss's Child, A New Era." She read it 3 times, then she deleted the article from her browser history. She had lost everything, but she had also, in losing everything, become invisible. And in her world, invisibility was a kind of freedom, not the kind anyone wanted, but the kind that kept you alive when everything else had failed. She finished her coffee, paid her bill, walked back to her apartment in a city where nobody knew her name. When you started watching part 1, you came for justice. You came to see Haun face consequences. The real justice was not watching her humiliated at an altar. The real justice was watching her understand that she had built a life on power she could not control and handed it to someone smarter. Amara did not need Seo Jun to protect her. She needed to understand that destruction was something she had chosen the moment she decided some people were worth erasing. The baby changed everything. Not because babies change men, because this baby represented a future built on choice rather than arrangement. Drop a 2 in the comments if you believe Amara made the right choice exposing Haun. I genuinely want to know where you stand. If you loved this, hit like and subscribe for the next one. The best stories are about people who understand exactly who they are and refuse to apologize for it. Thank you for watching.